Alright, welcome back to another video. Now, in this video, what I'm going to be covering is the 5 habits that made me $100,000 at the age of 20, and these are the exact habits that I just recently used to sell my company for multiple millions as a 24-year-old living in South Africa. Now, I'm going to be covering these habits specifically because there's so much miseducation out there where people believe that you have to strike gold or you have to come up with some phenomenal business model to come up with this kind of money or this kind of success. And it just simply isn't true. Quite frankly, the simple and easiest way that I made the success that I have so far in my life has merely been boiled down to the habits that I carry through day to day. Now, I'm going to be covering those so you can potentially recreate the same success that I wish I could have achieved sooner. And all of that, I owe the most amount of credit to my habit. So before further ado, I'm going to jump into them. The first habit that changed my life was changing my self-perception. Now, a lot of people very quickly see this as kind of an airy idea that they don't need to kind of take on at all. So a lot of people will probably click off at this point, but I can guarantee you that the single most important thing that I did for myself was I changed my self-perception. Now, what that actually means is I changed the way that I viewed myself, I changed the way I viewed my luck, and I changed the way that I viewed the world. There's one hard fact that I learned very early on at around the age of 16 when I was dealing with depression. We were just about to lose our house and we could barely afford to eat. So when I was in that moment, it was very difficult to look past it. So I very quickly had to change my self-perception. I had to change my perception of the world. And the one thing that I kept repeating to myself is also a concept out of the book of Psycho-Cybernetics, which I highly recommend that you read, which simply states, it is hard to change your habits if you never change the underlying beliefs of those habits. Now, what that means is essentially if you believe that you are a broken person, you are going to embody the beliefs and the habits of a broken person. Whereas if you simply believe that you are successful, if you believe that you are made for greater things, every habit that you have right now is a contradiction to that personality. You'll start waking up early because you simply believe that you are a successful person. You start to embody those habits. Waking up late, going out partying, and all of those habits that you form in your teen years, that now becomes very contradictory to that self-perception that you have of you being a successful person. Now, it depends on what your perception actually looks like of those people. But for me, that is how I changed my entire life around. I went from partying at 16 to, somehow, some way, making it through to my 16th birthday after heavy depression. And I started to believe that I was destined for more. So I started waking up early. I started working. I started creating habits for myself. I started reading. I was doing all of the things that I simply believe that successful people did in their day-to-day lives. And I embodied those habits. So changing your self-perception is the number one step to actually changing your entire life. It is a simple rule of fact that whatever you believe, you try to prove to be true. And that is exactly what I did, and I still continue to do to this day. Every single day, the first thing that I do is I go through a visualization process where I imagine the kind of person I want to become. I even wrote out a Wikipedia page for myself. And as ridiculous as it might seem to people, I read this every single morning and I have for the past 5 years. And ironically enough, a lot of the things in that Wikipedia that I wrote 4 years ago have come true. So it is just creating a vision so that you have direction for your life and changing your self-perception. But it takes a lot of work, especially if you're in a dark place right now. But trust me, this is a simple habit that you will want to adopt. The second habit that completely changed my life is daily planning. Now, the first thing that I do before my day even begins is I outline every single thing, hour by hour, exactly what I need to do. I outline the 5 main things that I need to get done, but then I go hour by hour and I separate my day into time slots to figure out exactly what I need to do. My entire morning is separated into a separate category of morning routine. Then I know exactly what time I'm going to gym before the day even begins. I know what I'm going to do in the morning. I know what time I'm going to gym. I know what I'm going to do for work. I know exactly who I'm reaching out to. I know what I'm reaching out to them with. So my entire day is planned out. The reason why this is such a life-changing habit is because it removes room for procrastination. You need direction in your life. You need to know fundamentally exactly step by step what you're going to do. You're almost giving yourself a blueprint so that you don't stray away from the goal. I started doing this again only when I was around 17 because I found that I was procrastinating all the time. I was getting distracted by video games. I was getting distracted by going out with friends. Whereas I made a deal with myself that only once I check off my list, which I simply do on Notes, on the Notes app on Apple, or I do it on Notion, after checking off those to-do lists, I immediately then give myself the permission to relax, or I give myself permission to kind of settle down and be more present. It's only until that point I make a deal with myself that I have to get all of that done, and then I have the right to relax. Now, this is the single most important thing that I've done in my routine aside from the self-perception, because it keeps me on track. It makes sure that I don't stray away. When you do not have vision, everything seems like a good opportunity. Everything seems like a good idea, or nothing seems like a good idea. Whereas if the night before you already have planned out your exact day, you know what you're getting into, and you've already given yourself a blueprint. So I recommend that you go ahead and you start doing a daily to-do list every single day. Now, moving on to the third habit that completely changed my life is reading. Now, again, this is what a lot of people recommend, but they don't really talk to you about why they recommend this so strongly. Reading is the single most important thing that you can do for your education, right? So you have your habits, you have self-perception, but the other thing that you need to include in those habits is you need to read. The reason for reading is because you're opening up your mind to new concepts, new ideas, and a mental stimulation that is outside of the normal dopamine fixes. A lot of people have different ways that they like to perceive information, and I completely understand that, but it depends what you are perceiving. If you're constantly engaging in brain rot content like TikTok and Reels, and you're taking your information or your education from Twitter, for example, you're not going to go down a very good path. Whereas if you make the habit of reading at least 5 pages every single day, it can be as small as that. You're constantly opening your mind to new perceptions, new outlooks, new information. And it depends what you read. Now, if you're looking to get into reading and you don't really know where to begin, I would strongly recommend figuring out what you actually like. If you are more of a fiction reader, then I would recommend books that actually have a bit of backstory to them, that have a bit of storytelling to them. There's so many books out there that have lessons to take away. For example, 1984, those are some of the books that you can read. But now, the books that I read that I found were the most beneficial to my life moving forward is psychology and business books. Now, if I could recommend any book to you, it would be Psycho-Cybernetics. I already mentioned it in the first point. That is a book that hands down I try to read every single year. The second book I would highly recommend is Shoe Dog. It goes over the story of Nike and how they actually founded the company, how they came up with the logo design. Pretty much everything is just a really good story on how a business is built, and it gives you pretty good lessons as well. The third and no-brainer book that I would recommend for you is How to Win Friends and Influence People. This is one that is suggested on most entrepreneurial books or most entrepreneurial pages, and there's a reason for it. This is fundamentally the single most important book that you'll take across the entirety of your life. It goes over every human interaction that you're going to have. It goes over every business interaction you're going to have, even if you don't have the the ambition of starting your own business, which is not for everyone. If you are simply going to be in the work field, this will help you navigate that as well. So reading, hands down, is one of the best things that I ever did for myself. The fourth habit that completely changed my life is choosing and learning new high income skills. So this is coming down to the point where, you've got the foundation of reading, you've got the foundation of self-perception, you know you want to be successful, you know that you're destined for greater things, you have a daily to-do list. But one of the things that you desperately need to bring into your routine is learning high income skills. Now, high income skills are anything that you can essentially learn as a skill, like Facebook ads or social media management or things like that you can offer as a paid service, or you can offer to people and get money in return. So it's different to selling a product or just regular service. It is something that is highly skillful, that is high in demand as well. For example, web development is a really good one. Video editors is a really good one. Not just anyone can come in and do it, but if you're skilled enough, you can charge a high price tag for it, especially because of the demand on those skills right now. It takes a 2-hour lesson on YouTube every single day to get better at these things. You don't have to pay for it. You don't have to invest in anything, but I would recommend that you just top up your skills. You learn what kind of high income skills are out there, and I actually teach this for completely free to a community that I created specifically for this very reason. Teaching entrepreneurs exactly how to find direction and how to monetize a skill. I teach all of this completely free, like I said, as opposed to people trying to sell courses on it. I do it for free. So go down below. It's going to be the first link in the description. But otherwise, I highly recommend you go down below, learn those skills. Otherwise, go onto YouTube and immediately think of high income skills that you can start to learn today sharpen up your skills, and eventually, trust me, you're going to be able to get tons and tons of money for that skill. Whether it's web development, whether it is running ads, or whether it is something else like video editing, trust me, you're going to want to do this. This is actually the exact way that I started to make money so frequently and so aggressively at a young age. I very quickly learned a high income skill without even realizing it. I already knew how to run ads. I knew how to run email marketing. And then eventually I created an agency around it. And from that point, I actually ended up selling my agency this year in the past week for multiple millions. And the reason I was able to do that is because it all started from a high income skill. That is what you can do for yourself. That is a possibility of, making high income every single month, of leaving your job, of creating a new life for yourself. It all comes down to this one habit of learning a skill and eventually perfecting it. So that takes me to the fifth and final habit that will completely change your life. And this one is going to be tough for a lot of you, but it is simple. The first habit is turn your phone on airplane mode. That sounds simple again, but most people just will not do it. It's such a simple habit that completely changed my life in the beginning of my journey. With all of the distraction around you day to day, you are going to want to implement this. Those dopamine hits that you get from scrolling on messages, those dopamine hits that you get when you see a notification, those dopamine hits when you automatically default to checking Instagram when you're bored, those need to change dramatically and fast. You need to change your life. You cannot rely on synthetic stimulants to keep you entertained. And trust me, that distraction that causes is not just a 2-second look at your phone. It takes approximately 30 minutes for your brain to refocus on the task that you are doing in a deep focus way. So if you're studying or if you're working on a project or something and you're in deep focus and you suddenly get a notification and you look at your phone, your focus isn't just gone for those 2 seconds. They're gone for the next 30 minutes. So you're actually destroying your entire work schedule, your entire routine, for the purpose of checking your phone because it was convenient at the time. Trust me, this is something I started to implement early. My friends started to learn, okay, Jade is not going to reply for the next 4 hours. Jade is not going to reply probably for the next few days. And that's how it is to this day. I have probably 120 or so missed messages on WhatsApp just from personal contacts. I'll throw up a screenshot somewhere maybe, but I have all these missed notifications from people and they just understand. I put those boundaries in 4 or 5 years ago when I first really got into my entrepreneurship and put all these habits in place. And the one most important thing that I did is I stopped checking my phone first thing in the morning. I stopped replying to people until 12 p.m. in the afternoon. And then the other thing I started to do is start to turn off my phone from 9:30 or 9 p.m. onwards. That way, I was in complete deep focus work for the entire morning. And in the evenings, I was able to get really strong sleep because I didn't have all these synthetic stimulants. And that is how I also got into reading. I actually replaced these synthetic stimulants with reading a book, so that it was a little bit more stimulating for my brain, less brain rot, less distraction, and I could actually keep my focus on the tasks that I needed to do. It was phenomenal when I look back, and my average screen time was around 7 hours. And when you calculate that up, you are literally in the span of 2 days pretty much missing an entire day of life. And if you calculate that week over week, it's a scary amount of time that you are losing just by looking at your phone every 30 minutes or scrolling on TikTok. And I get it, we all need to switch off here and there, but do it in moderation. Have those stipulations with yourself. Have those rules and those boundaries with yourself where you turn off your phone, you don't answer to anyone immediately. And I promise you, this is going to make a lot of people anxious. It's going to rile people up because people don't understand how important this actually is. You're probably asking, why is that so important? But if you don't understand that, then trust me, this is probably not the lifestyle for you. But if you want to change your life, if you want to take it to a different level, you need to put boundaries in, not only with yourself, with other people, and you need to honor those boundaries. So with that being said, those are the 5 habits that personally made me $100,000 by the age of 20. And again, that's how I was able to sell my company in the past week. So with that being said, I hope you adopt these habits, and I hope to see you in the next video next week. But until then, I'll see you another time.